and how like almost insignificant your ego is, like, you are everything, like, you are the universe experiencing itself. Like that's like the basis of my belief system. But your ego always trying to attach itself to things. And the easiest way for it to do that is through like fear, anxiety, depression, making you feel isolated. But really and truly, everything you need is like now. Everything you ever need is in this present moment. So there's nothing really to worry about or stress about, I don't think.
Lawrence, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, man.
No, pleasure. I think, I just thought about this now just as I hit record. I think you're the youngest guest I've ever had on the podcast. So
I'm honored.
You're taking the honor right there, man. You're taking it.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, man. I'm excited, and we've been chatting a lot like before hitting record, which I kind of wish we recorded some of it, to be honest. But I've been holding off on this one question because I wanted to make sure it was on record. Like,
yes,
I'm really curious about your journey. Like, what inspired your journey into like spirituality, self-development? Because like you're a young dude. Like when I was your age, like, I'm not gonna lie, my life was a mess. Like, so like what started that journey for you?
The exact same thing as you. And again, thank you for having me. And yeah, the exact same thing as you. My life was a mess. And my head was as well. My belief systems weren't really like in check. And it like one day, actually let's go way back when.
Yeah, man,
and
let's
you don't mind
me
you don't mind me talking about drugs, do you?
No, go for it, man. If it's part of your
Cool.
story, man, I'm here for it.
So well, first of all, I suffered from like eczema. I had like a pretty bad eczema, which was like a result of stress from my childhood. And I started like smoking weed to relieve the stress. And for some reason, weed just had a very like significant effect on me. It just because the science is, it's just like it makes your neurons or your brain receptors like fire faster. So the pain you've experienced or the trapped emotions in your body is like almost released. And because of my childhood being like fairly traumatic, like it just released all these emotions. And I was having like revelations, downloads from the universe kind of thing, now that I think back to it. And it set me on this really like spiritual path, which like nobody understood because I was just that guy. Started eating very healthily. And then eventually I just found like my eczema would go. Then I started realizing, it was a mindset shift that kind of like, I changed my inner world, and then my outer world also changed. I started spending more time in nature, and I started doing the things that my inner child loved, which set me on to like creating content on TikTok to kind of like find a like-minded group. And ever since then, I've just been like gaining more knowledge through books, through podcasts, through like inspiring people like yourself, connecting with people like yourself. And it's been a good journey.
So I just want to take a quick moment to shout out the sponsors of this episode, London Media Lounge. They're a West London based studio space. They have recording studios, they have YouTube spaces, they have green screens, and they'll also handle content production, social media management, anything that you're looking for. They're really easy to work with, and they'll create a bespoke content production package just for you. So why don't you save time and let the professionals handle your content business? To get in touch with them, head over to londonmedialounge.co.uk and let them know that Alex sent you. I love it, man. And it's like, I think that the thing that I really resonated with you was like, you're, like I said, you're quite young, man. I hope you don't mind me saying that, like in comparison to most people who share the kind of wisdom that you do, right? And I was just really interested, like every time I see one of your videos pop up on TikTok, like I'd be like, right, this guy's like, he knows what he's talking. And it's not, you can always tell when someone's just saying something because they've read it versus like saying it because they live it. And I was like, this guy is like, he knows his stuff. Like, I can tell that he's putting this stuff into action. And I was like, he's so young though. Like, how does he? Do you know what I mean? It's like, how?
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing because I don't know whether you think it's a generational thing, like because I'm a bit older than you, but like, well, probably more than 15 years or so, around about older than you. So like, my generation grew up and it was like, it wasn't cool to talk about stuff. It wasn't cool to be spiritual. It wasn't cool to be into personal development. It was, you know, it's just about cool to smoke weed. Do you know what I mean? And like hang out in the streets,
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff. So like, do you think it's like a bit of a I don't know if you know, put yourself on like the Gen Z bracket or whatever, but like it's a generational thing where it's like, it's become more accepting for people of your age or your generation to like be more open, and not just to talk about it, but just to be more open within themselves.
Oh, 100%. I feel like things have changed so quickly. If I look back, you know, from the start of the decade to now, like from the early 2000s to now, things have changed like dramatically. Um, you know, in terms of like how people express themselves, social norms are changing, and also technology. You know, technology has increased our accessibility to these kind of things. You know, if it wasn't for TikTok, you know, I wouldn't know about like philosophy, or like stoicism, and all these like popular kind of tropes that like, you know, people like, you know. I think there's too many subcultures now in this day and age to like not have a different sort of identity to, you know, because before people were put into like brackets, I'm pretty sure, of like, oh, because you're this color, you can't be hanging around with this sort of people and whatever. But the boundaries are slowly eroding, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
I
It's
want to embody somebody who like, you know, creates their own sort of identity. I don't ever like hold myself to any identity. I like to just be myself and do how I feel, kind of thing. And Kanye West has been my biggest inspiration in that. I have to give him credit for it.
Mate, I rate that.
Mm.
You're talking to a massive Kanye fan, so like
I
I totally resonate with that man. And it's
mm,
like I think he's so misunderstood. Like, and this, I
100%.
find this really interesting because like, I don't know if I mean, you probably did like heard his podcast. I think it was last year with Joe Rogan. Like, to me, that was such an eye-opening conversation in terms of like Kanye and where he's at within himself, but also
Mm,
like the way that his mind works and the visions that he has. Like, you can see how like in one tweet or like one post on Instagram or 1 2 minute clip, like people will be like, wow, what on earth is this guy on? But when you but do you know what I mean? But like when you put it together with the whole picture, it's like it makes so much sense. The guy's like he's a visionary. He wants to push the boundaries. He never wants to be
mm,
comfortable in himself. Not for any bad, like, don't get me wrong, he's had his struggles like with his mom and all of that stuff.
mm.
But like, he's someone who's been willing to always put himself out there. Like when he came on the rap scene back in like probably when I was your age. Now I'd have been younger, to be fair, but like he was wearing the stripy polo tops and the backpack, and like every other rapper was like baggy jeans, like all black, like, you know,
Yeah.
bandanas, and he come on like full of color, like, you know, glasses with no lenses in and all this sort of stuff. And he was
Mm.
like, he was just being like a pure embodiment of himself, whatever that meant to him. And
Yeah.
that's so fascinating to see a human being do, you know.
It's so inspirational to see someone doing that. And that's what's definitely like bringing the culture forward in a way, is you know, people embodying these traits. And I have a very like out there kind of explanation for this. So, you know, I believe that, and we kind of alluded to it, you know, how in our DNA we have philosophers who, you know, who were like generations before us. We have the warriors, and we have um uh just other archetypes of people, and it's all in our DNA. Like this stuff, you know, energy never dies. It's still all in us. And I feel like we're coming to the point where people are able to go within more, and discover these parts of themselves that they can express in different ways. I would like to think of an example, but it's not really coming to my head. Or okay, actually no. You know, like Ryan Holiday, for example.
Yeah,
Have you heard of him?
yeah, of course,
So
man.
I'm reading his book called Conspiracy right now, actually. And he's like very into Stoicism, and you know, it's like he's read so much on it. Like now, it's like a part of him, and he is able to show you a practical way of how to use Stoicism in this day and age, in the 21st century, which I think is all coming full circle now. So everything, all the truths from the past, and you know, people now are starting to embody it freedom of expression, you know, the right thinking, and we're able to like increase the growth of society so much more from implementing these things, which is a good thing.
Yeah, mate. And do you know what? It's so funny. I was having this conversation the other day with my coach actually, and he comes from an Indian background. So he was like, and I was saying it to someone else as well. Yes, it's like the work that I do, like through the podcast as a coach, I see it as like continuing the work of my ancestors. Like my family is all pretty much Italian background, so we've probably got links somewhere to the Roman Empire.
Yes.
And I'm not saying like I'm related to Seneca or Marcus Aurelius or like any of the Stoics. I might be, I don't know, but probably there's some relation to someone who learned from them. And it's like the Stoics, their role in society was to be one of counsel. People would go to them to seek counsel, to seek advice, to understand themselves better.
Yeah.
And I see that what I'm doing now is just a continuation of that in a newer age, in a more modern age, in maybe a slightly different way, because we're able to share things online and it can get seen by millions of people, or just 10 people or whatever. And I think like that in itself is amazing, because when more people start to embody that and start to realize like we're no different to the Stoics, we're no different to the gurus in India, we're no different to, you know, the monks from Nepal or whatever, like we're all sharing the same energy, we're all embodying, or all in embodiment of the same energy. Like you can learn to tap into that yourself, that innate wisdom that's in us.
It's that's such a beautiful poetic way of putting it. We are all from the same source. We originate from the same like energy. So you know, you saying about you may or may not be related to Seneca, which is quite funny, is the you are, because we're all from the same energy source.
Yeah.
We're all made of the same matter. The trees that you look at and see, anything that you lay your eyes on is an extension of you, which is very poetic. And you know, this truth that I have and like know very well has got me to where I am, because I don't judge myself or judge other people. I do, of course, but like not all the time. I'm able to see past it and say, okay, I'm looking at this person. They're obviously a reflection of me. What can I do to improve myself or love that part of myself? And then that allows me to just grow and not like, you know, say to myself, oh, maybe I should, you know, work a normal job, or maybe I should, you know, because how am I going to change the world? Like all these negative thoughts are just, there's no point listening to them, because when you follow that truth, you know, you can do great things with it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I'd love to know more about how you, that understanding, that wisdom, how do you go about embodying that in like your day-to-day life?
Okay. So psychedelics were a great groundwork for me. As I mentioned already, weed was like a psychoactive. And then I did LSD and shrooms pretty later down the line. And again, that removed my ego completely for like an hour or two, however long it lasts. So I was able to just see how all my thoughts are stopping me from embodying my true self. So then I started to like question, oh, what is truth? Like what is the truth? And I was reading this book called Within You is the Power by Dr. Joseph Murphy. He wrote this, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And he just said the truth is in the silence. The truth cannot be told. The truth cannot be spoken of, or whatever. It is the all-knowing, unseen truth, you know. And where can you find that? You can find it in meditation, you know, by like listening to someone when they talk instead of trying to talk. So just I spent a lot of time, and I'm getting to the answer very soon. I spent a lot of time like trying to talk and prove myself and be the class clown. And now when people are talking, I just like to listen to them and, you know, not try and like force my point too much, and just like be silent in meditation or yoga or these practices. So that's how I mainly do it. And I do it like in the mornings. So I get like that good grounding for the rest of the day.
Mm. Yeah, do you know what? I think it's so true. Like there's so much wisdom in that silence. And there's a philosopher who's, I don't even know if I call him philosopher. I guess he kind of was, a guy called Sid Banks, who I've been listening to a lot of his stuff recently, and reading a lot of his books. And one of the things that he says is that the one thought that everyone is always seeking is the one of no thought.
Mm.
Like we're always trying to seek the wisdom and the peace and the ease of that silence, but we're trying to do it through the power of thought, which you can't do because it exists beyond the
Yeah.
thought, that exists in the silence. And I think when you step into that, like when I'm coaching, for example, like 90% of the time I'm listening. I'm sitting there like present. I'm listening to what someone's saying. When I'm recording a podcast, a lot of the time I'm listening. And it's like being really present with that person allows you to hear what they're actually saying. And when you're really hearing what they're saying on a deep level, you can speak to that. If they sound like there's some resistance or frustration or even excitement, like you can speak to that in them, and
Mm.
you can build the conversation and the relationship from there. Whereas if you're just, caught up in your own thoughts, you're caught up in the thinking, what do I need to say next? What should I say? What's the right thing? What's the wrong thing? You're never really listening truly to them to have proper deep communication.
Well, that's right. That's right. I love that, because when I first did my podcast interview, first ever episode, it was with my friend, and when we click record, it's like we couldn't even like get started because we just didn't know what to talk about. And I started to shift like the attention from myself and my own thoughts to him, and it just changed. So it is always like a learning curve. Some people, were brought up with that. Like being told they're like the center of things, and by their parents and stuff, like, but then as you grow up you realize how much more there is, and how like almost insignificant your ego is. Like you are everything. Like you are the universe experiencing itself. Like that's like the basis of my belief system. But your ego always trying to attach itself to things. And the easiest way for it to do that is through like fear, anxiety, depression, making you feel isolated. But really and truly, everything you need is like now. Everything you ever need is in this present moment. So there's nothing really to worry about or stress about, I don't think.
Yeah, no, you're
Mm.
right, and that's it, right? And I think that's the role of the ego. It's the role of thought, isn't it? It takes us away from being present and what is, because it and it. I know, like there's maybe some people listening to this now, and they're like, "What do you mean? There's no problems in the now, in the present? I've got these bills to pay, and I've got this, toxic relationship, and I've got this and that." But it's like when you really understand like the essence of it, it's like, okay, that those may be situations that are happening outside of you, but right now inside, if you sit in silence and in the quiet, there is no problems, because it's just that ease and that peace that you're seeking by wanting to solve all of these other things. It's like it always exists within you, but we're always looking outside of ourselves to find it in something else, instead of looking at the source of where it comes from, which is us.
Yeah, it's how we react to things always. That the bills can be a way, almost like a test for maybe like let's not use that example because I haven't like necessarily experienced it yet. But for me, I trade, right? So I trade forex, which is a very stressful thing to do when you're not in the present. So it's taught me a lot about emotions. So when I lost a lot of money, I was like, oh no, like I'm losing money. This is awful, as everyone would do. But then it's like down the line, I've taught myself discipline, how to control my emotions. I've built a strategy, and it's like all the bad things that have happened are happening for something good. And then in relation to the present moment, when the price is moving or whatever, like no one knows what's going to happen next. So the market isn't against you. If it hits your stop loss, it's not because the market was out to get you or anything. Like that's your ego talking again. It's just about going with the flow. And you know, if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. There shouldn't be any emotion when it comes to trading. It's meant to be like a very cold, emotionless game. So that's like a very good philosophy. Trading has given me so much like knowledge. It's a joke. It's so funny.
So what else would you say you've learned from your experience with trading then?
Oh, so much. Let me think. My ego and my need to prove myself, because when I'm in like green, I'm like telling everyone, oh, trading is amazing, you should get it, you know, oh, I'm so good at trading, you know, my ego is all like inflated and I'm walking around like I'm, you know, and then when I'm red, then I feel like, you know, so it taught me a lot of like how my self-worth is based on results, which a lot of people, I mean, it's pretty much universal, that, isn't it? So yeah, but then now it's kind of taught me that, you know, it's not like I created the price movement. It's the institutions who are doing all that. Like I just basically hit a lucky guess and use the correct like risk management or whatever I did. But if I can just repeat that strategy over and over again, without emotion, then that's when I win long term. But like, you know, yeah, and also short term pleasure against long term achievement as well is something I've learned, which is pretty big.
Yeah, that I think that's a pretty big one, isn't it? Like, because it's so easy to look for the short-term wins and the short-term pleasure over actually the journey of what it is that you're doing, right? And it's like, you know, we can look at life as a whole, like it's a journey, it's an experience that we have. And it's like, if we spend most of our time searching for those short-term wins, like, you know, the next job promotion, the next new car, the next new thing I can buy, clothes, the next holiday, the next whatever, then we're always going through life seeking the next win in our eyes. And when we don't have the win, we feel like we're losing. And that's where we can become dissatisfied in life, is because we feel like it means something about you to not always have these wins that you've created in your mind as a win. And it's like when you attach the meaning to that, and you're saying like, I need these wins in order to be to feel some kind of worthiness about myself, then I'm not surprised that a lot of people feel dissatisfied in life, because you're seeking the pleasure and the purity in life in other things other than yourself. You're putting the onus on something outside of you to bring you the pleasure which you can just have right now. And when you don't have that pleasure that you think you should have from that thing, you tell yourself you're worthless, but you're not. You're as worthy as anything and anyone in the world, because you're here. You're here now. Like, you're living, you're breathing, you're having this experience on this like floating rock. Like, if that's not a win, like, I don't know what is, man.
Oh, bro, honestly. And one statistic is that the chances of being born is 1 in 400 trillion. That's like more wealth than anyone has ever, you know, got in this life, or ever. 400 trillion. That's a huge number. Like that's huge.
Yeah.
And you have like been birthed out of the stars, and the planets have aligned, and your ancestors have survived just for you to be sitting here in the comfort of a house, you know, with the internet and limitless information, you know, family, friends, laughter, joy. You know, it's fucking amazing. Life is a trip. You know, it's ridiculous how this came about. And I strongly believe that we're destined for even more after this physical body dies as well. You know, I genuinely believe that. And it's like something that I can't ever be like swayed from, that truth, you know.
So what do you think happens then once we die? What do you think? I mean, it's hard to have an answer for, right? But what do you think that experience is?
That's a good question. So obviously I speak for myself, but I just genuinely believe that, you know, our consciousness is the only thing that's real. Our, like, the awareness is the only thing that's real. Now our awareness is filtered through our five senses, and it's filtered through the 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is from like red to violet. So they're the only colors we can see, and the five senses are the only senses we can you know interact with the world through. So this is the human experience, and obviously the other awareness is thought, and speech and language. But then when your consciousness, when your physical body dies, or your brain dies, I believe that consciousness is like almost like it leaves your body. Call it spirit. Consciousness can be called spirit or something like that. And then it goes back out into the universe or wherever it goes. And then it can like almost choose its next sort of like destination. Either it wants to reincarnate in a physical body to have another life lesson, or it can be one with the source again, the original consciousness, which is, I believe, is love, is like the strongest force, which is very, very nice, isn't it? You can tell why I'm so happy all the time. I've just got no worries. But that's what Jesus spoke about.
Yeah.
He said, the kingdom of heaven is within, and that love your neighbor. His only two teachings were love God and love your neighbor, because that's what we are. We just love. And we've chosen to enter these bodies, these flesh suits on this earth, to like experience this reality of like duality. That's quite cool. I should be with Wretch 32 with rhymes like that. This duality, to experience the other side, and like the analogy of Adam and Eve, when they ate the fruit of good and evil, is like the ego, like the splitting of the polar opposites of like love and evil. Like for us to experience it, it means we get to learn more about ourselves and learn more about our shadow self, and experience trauma and stress and fear, which makes, when we do leave our body, it makes it so much more worth it, because we're able to experience like that side. But anyway, that's just me. Yeah.
No, I think it's super deep, man, and it's like, and I think this is the thing. It's I think a lot of people don't try to consciously understand what that experience could be once we move on from our physical form. And because of that, people have a lot of fear around dying, right? Like either subconsciously or consciously, there's a lot of fear around death, right?
That's the ego fearing it.
Yeah, because it's like, well, I will no longer exist, I'm not going to be here, so therefore I need to make the most out of this experience. And that means I need to go and collect all of these memories and all of these experiences in the world, and all of this money and all of this stuff that I trade my time on this earth for. Like I need to collect it all in order to prove that my time here was worth something. And when you actually, from what you're saying, is like realize that we're all sharing the same consciousness anyway. Like we are one consciousness. Like it's the consciousness of life that allows us to be aware of our existence. So that consciousness that we have doesn't go anywhere. Like if I die tomorrow, like the consciousness still exists. It's not my consciousness. It's just consciousness. So like that's always going to continue to exist, right? And as we were saying before, that is just energy that is going back into itself, and therefore is staying within the energy of the universe, which is then going to be shared into maybe another life form, or hopefully a tree or something, I don't know, another planet, like I don't know, like but like when you deep it for real, it's like actually that means that our experience, our life, our day-to-day life, our time on this planet, whether it's 20 years or 90 years or 120 years, like doesn't have to be as complicated as we can make it. Like, and we can make it as complicated or as uncomplicated as we want, and that's our choice in some way.
That's right.
And most people don't realize that they have that choice.
We are creating it. We're creating the entire experience. actually, let me speak for myself because I say we all the time, but I'll just say, because if you don't believe, like, if you're listening, is this live, by the way? Just wondering.
No,
Oh,
we'll be going out there, and I think when you realize like that our experience is entirely created in thought, like, then you start to realize the power that thought has and the choice that we have in some way in how we respond to some of the thinking we have. And that's the
yeah.
other thing, like people talk about my thinking as if it's like their thinking and they own it. Like, it's like, this is my thinking. It's like me saying, this is my oxygen, like I'm gonna, like, this is my water that I'm going, it's just mine. Like, it's not, it's just thinking that is passing through you in the moment. And it's like, when you realize that you don't have to react to every bit of thinking that you have, it means that the conflicts that you have become quieter. Your mind becomes quieter because you're
That's
not
it,
like,
yeah.
oh, like, I'm upset, I now need to go and do this, or oh, this person's angered me, I now need to respond like this. It's like, oh, okay, that's something that happened, and you can choose the experience that you have of that
That's right.
when you realize you have that choice.
And yes, I do remember what I was going to say, and it was exactly along those lines. Is where I feel as if my consciousness, just it's like experiencing itself through through thought, and all these thoughts are just like coming and going. They're like frequencies. And if you're in a low frequency, you're going to experience like low vibrational thoughts, which in simple just means if you're like in a fearful state, or you're worrying, or you're stressing, you're going to experience more anger. You're going to be more impatient or impulsive, as opposed to when you're meditated and you're like in a good happy state. You're going to be like, oh, what's the next thing I can do today? You're going to be like a child. So yeah, I strongly believe that you create this. And some people might disagree with that, and I would have disagreed with that, because I'll be like, oh, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? It's not happening to you, it's happening for you. So nothing, no hell is going to last forever on this earth. You're going through whatever you're going through, so that when you do see the other side, you can be more grateful for it. And then those thoughts of gratitude will just pile on and pile on and pile on. And then you can start experiencing, like, heaven on earth, essentially, is what it is. Because it starts off with one thought of gratitude. And like, even in the times where I was going through it, like, I was grateful for nature. Nature's going to be here forever. So that's like eternal gratitude, because I'm grateful for, I would go out for a nice long walk, or I'm grateful for just being alive and having good health. There's things that you can ground yourself in that makes you grateful. And again, like, your brain will get, and your mind will get more used to those thoughts. So the consciousness can be filtered through those thoughts, as opposed to the negative thoughts. And I thought what was quite funny, that that pause we had, where like, I couldn't remember what I was going to say. Like, my mind could have easily filled itself with, oh, this is so awkward. Oh, oh, is he going to cut this out? Oh, all these different thoughts that
Yeah.
go around your head, that race around. But like, instead, just I've got to the point where, because like of meditation and stuff, it's like I can just find silence and find peace in that moment. Because it's just separating the monkey mind from the higher consciousness, essentially, is what it is. And I was having a conversation, with a venerable Tree Dao. He's a monk on TikTok, and he says that all he has to do is shut his eyes, and there's nothing there. And I thought that is amazing, because he like meditates for like 5 hours. Ridiculous.
Do you know what I've always thought with monks? Yeah, that I wonder what it's like, because you go to, I don't know, monk school or whatever. You go to the ashram or whatever, right? And you learn, and you sit and you meditate, and it's quiet and it's peaceful, and you do your tasks, and it's all very mindful, and it's all very concentrated in like a container, right? You go about your day with all the other monks. And I've always wondered, like, what is it like for a monk who comes out of that after many, many years, like 2, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, back into society? Like, how do they, transfer those learnings and that mindfulness across? Because you've got a lot more opportunities to move away from that, because things come up, situations happen, events unfold, people say things, do things. like there's so many variables outside of you which look like they can cause you to react in a negative way, but they don't really have to if you know that you're the one who ultimately chooses how you experience that moment. But I've always wondered for a monk, like, what's it like? Because you're coming from like this solitary, quiet, still place into like the busyness of society, like, and do you know what I mean? Like, what's that transfer like for them?
So he has a TikTok with 1 million followers.
Wow.
So he's very popular. And he is actively in society.
So
So he like does rock climbing. That's one thing he told me. And that helps curb depression because, you know, again, you're fully focused in the moment. You're not thinking about the bills or the family or the cat. You're thinking about, you know, the wait, like you're thinking about, if I slip up, I'm gonna die.
yeah,
Essentially, you know,
fall.
that's what exactly, you're in the experience. And he made a TikTok actually describing nirvana, or that state of full focus. And he says, and it went like really viral, because he was talking to a specific target audience of gamers. And he says, oh, you experience nirvana whenever you play games, because you know you're fully in the experience. Like when someone's shooting at you in COD, you're not thinking about anything else. You're in it. You're fully in the
Trying to
experience.
dodge it, trying to hide, trying to get the
Yeah,
armor packs on. Yeah.
that's exactly that. And there's no other thing you can be doing in that moment. So he just said, see it as like in real life, you're here now, be here now, and experience like what reality is in front of you. And you will never you know, have like a stressful thought again. And obviously through meditation, you can enhance this ability of focus. But yeah, to answer your question, he because it's not necessarily that they go into a monastery to meditate. They go into their minds to meditate. And like even if they go into society and there's, you know, cars and there's like people and all these distractions, they're still so grounded in their mind that not everything is like a waking dream to them. Almost like they'll probably find something nice to do, like sit on a beach and chill, you know. They're just doing their own thing. They're on their own like frequency, I guess.
Yeah, and do you know, it's funny because like I was a really like big meditator for probably for nearly 5 years, right? Meditate pretty much every day. Like I used to use Headspace and you know, on the app you can track, like you have a daily counter. So it's like you've done 2 days in a row, 10 days in a row, whatever. And there's a few times where I'd managed to do 100 days in a row, or like one time I got to 198 days in a row, I think it was, and I was pissed because I didn't get to 200. But anyway, beside that, like, so I was someone who meditated a lot, and something shifted for me recently because I realized like the state of the practice of meditation is different to the state of meditation. Like the state of meditation is our natural state. Like if we you know, like when you have your iPhone and you go into the settings and you go like set to default factory settings, like if you could do that to a human, like you're going to be resetting your default factory settings to a state of meditation and just ease and calm. Like babies are a meditative state most of the time. Yes, they cry, yes, they want things, but they're still in a meditative state because they don't have any other thinking or thought or beliefs going on. So they're just this pure state of meditation or consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And I realized that for myself recently, like I think some point last year, and I just stopped meditating because I was like, well, if that's the case, I don't need to meditate in order to reach that state because I already am that state. I just need to experience it, you know?
That's powerful, man, because I'm on the same sort of thought pattern as you. Because I used to, it's so funny when I think about it now. I used to wake up and I used to like set my alarm and say I have to meditate at this time, then I have to do yoga at this time, and I have to do. That's not meditation. I'm just applying the same thing like to then doing a practice. You know, I'm applying that same monkey mind sort of like way of doing things, as I have to do this meditation or I'm not going to feel good. I have to do this yoga or I'm not going to feel worthy. You know, I'm playing the same sort of like program, but just applying it to a spiritual practice. And again, it's spiritual ego is so easy to fall into. It's just like so easy to do. And yeah, like I meditate when I feel like I have to. But you can meditate on anything. You know, someone watching this video, like really listening to my voice, or looking at Alex's hair, it's just like you can really be in the moment.
Yeah.
With anything. And obviously, your breath is also an anchor to your consciousness. It's like something that grounds you. Not like realizing when you're not breathing rhythmically is another thing to do. But yeah, man, you're always in a state of meditation, whether you like it or not. It's just you're experiencing through different thoughts. You're replaying your past, like these events that have happened to you, and you're blaming other people, or you're like thinking about something really nice or whatever. It's just like consciousness is just playing around all the time. And when you can like separate from that, you just realize it's all like just happening. Like life is literally a trip. Like that's my favorite saying now. It's literally a trip. Like we come into these like bodies. Again, you said that floating rock analogy. It's like it's so simple, but it's so good. It's just it's actually just crazy to think about.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I always think like the best place to experience a meditative state is in the shower.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, when you're like in the shower, there's no like external stimulus. There's no, there's literally nothing. You haven't got your phone. There's no, okay, some people might have music or whatever, but if you don't have music, like you're just in these four walls or behind a curtain with water hitting you on your head or your back or whatever. And I always experience so many thoughts that pass through my mind in that moment. It could be like, what did I have for dinner yesterday? Like, that argument I had with someone 2 weeks ago, that thing that I said by mistake on the podcast, or, the book that I've been reading, or, whatever, like when's my next paycheck coming? Like whatever, like it's just so many random thoughts. And it's like, what I've realized is like, that's because it's our natural state. And don't get me wrong, like I still think meditation is an incredible practice for anyone, because it allows you to recognize the way that thought works. Like if you sit somewhere for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just in silence and just being aware of your thinking, knowing that you don't have to react to it, just be aware of it, you'll see the most random thoughts pass through you. Like honestly, you'll be thinking about like, oh, I wonder what like turtles are up to this time of year, or like just the most random. I know. Do you know what I mean? And it's like when you recognize, oh, actually, this is always going on. Like there's always these random thoughts passing through me. But what happens is I tend to grab onto one that I don't like the look of, or I do like the look of, and then I add some personal meaning to it, and then I create a whole story and experience around that. It's like you realize like that's how we're experiencing most things, is like we're just grabbing this thought, and then we're using that thought to create the experience that we have in that moment. And like I found that meditation was a really great way for me to recognize that. Like, but now I feel like it's not something that I need to do in order to experience that, because I've done so much of it. I don't want to say tap into it all the time, but like I understand the way the mind works, that passes thought is passing, it's always fleeting, it's always coming, it's always going. It's like it's only as permanent as I make it.
Yeah, I love that from you. That was very wise, that whole statement.
It's gonna have to be an IG clip, that one.
Yeah, do that. I don't know what time we're on, but make sure you keep a note of it. Yeah, bro, that's amazing. I just love these conversations. They're so like stimulating. I love just being able to get like wisdom from somebody else. I think that's my favorite thing to do, is to have a conversation, go outside myself for a bit. And it's the same thing with Robert Greene. That's what he was telling me. Like he's great, he's very wise. And he was saying, like, if we were just in our own heads all the time, life would get boring. Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself and see that in that new perspective in someone else. Get riled up for a second and then like agree with them the next second. Like just see people's perceptions, and it can be like a very enlightening experience. And I want to have conversations with people who I don't even agree with, because I don't get angry. I just get like curious, like, oh, this is how you think, like interesting, tell me more. I couldn't really get why people get like annoyed. And I think the media plays a big part in that personally. It's like division and us versus them, vaccinated versus unvaccinated, all that stuff. I don't want it to get too political, but
Yeah, like outrage culture, isn't it? It's outrage culture.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think like, so I had this conversation the other day with a client of mine around he actually was talking about cancel culture, but
Oh,
it led on to like talking about outrage culture, which is basically the same thing.
oh,
It's like, I find that the reason that happens is because people have a misunderstanding of where their feeling is coming from. They think because someone has said this thing or acted in a certain way, it's made me feel a certain way. But it's only the thinking that you have about the situation that's created the feeling. That's not to say that if something that person has done has all of a sudden become good, it can still be a bad thing that they've done. It just doesn't mean that you need to think that it gives you a feeling and therefore feel outraged by it and need to cancel people. Because like, think about like, in like all of the like Roman emperors and like people who have existed over thousands of years, like how many of them would have got cancelled? Do you know what I mean? Like, like Hitler would have been cancelled, but like it's like,
oh,
do you know what I mean? But it's like now it's like we make it like such a big deal on like canceling like over the smallest thing, because we don't come from a point of understanding. Like what you're saying, it's more powerful to come from a place of like, where does that person have to be in their life, or what beliefs do they must they have in order to think that way or to take that
yeah,
action.
it's interesting.
Yeah, and it builds more compassion. Like there's more of a want to understand that person.
Yeah, yeah. Even I was having this is funny. I was in my room, right, and there was a guy who walked past my accommodation, and he knows me, and he said something about me like behind my back, essentially, to some person. I heard him because my window was open, and I was like, oh fuck, like that was really annoying. Like I was thinking of all the possible things I would do to him, like if I saw him, playing on in my head. Um, and then today I spoke to him. I had a conversation with him. We sat down and we spoke about it. And like I was just intrigued, like, you know, what gives you the right or the nerve, or like what makes you feel like you have to talk behind my back? Like, why don't you come and talk to me? Because I personally would go to someone and tell them, this is what I think about you. I don't care. End of the day, this is like what I believe. And I'm very like enforcing in that aspect. But there are some people who are like, they won't say it. They'll be really nice to your face, and then they'll go and talk shit behind your back. So instead of me getting like completely riled up, we had just a long conversation for about 30 minutes. It was a bit heated, but we didn't obviously, we didn't feed into it. But then he ended up telling me like, all of his like his life story and what he was going through. And there were so many similarities between us, and there were so many like things that could have led to the way he is now, which makes me just think about when you start off as like a young child, you start off as like innocence, and you just want to have fun, and then things start happening to you. People start saying sick things about you, and they start labeling you, and you start accepting these labels, and then you're like formed into this character who is not actually you. It's a product of society. And that's the way I think people are like almost like personal projects in a way, and we're all just experiencing the world through different lenses essentially. So it's really nice to get to like the bottom ground, or is it the middle ground, I don't know the term, of where their behavior comes from, instead of just like getting angry at them and fighting, because I think that's dangerous way to go about things, because it's like you're immediately saying, oh, I hate that person, which also means you hate that part of yourself. And there have been times where I've talked about people behind their backs, and it made me remember, oh, I've done that before. Would I like it if they came up to me and punched me, or would I have rather them sat me down and said, why did you do that? So it really just comes down to like wanting to understand the other person, because they are indeed an aspect of yourself.
Yeah, totally. And I think when you come from that place of understanding and compassion, you drop a lot of shit. Like you drop a lot of like hate, you drop a lot of conflict, you drop a lot of anger, frustration, sadness. like, and you just feel, you know, like a shared love with that person. And it doesn't mean that you love them, like, and you want to like be their best mate. You might never want to speak to them ever again, but it just means that you're not holding a conflict within yourself over that person or that thing.
Or
And I think,
even just a split second where like you maybe you feel like you're gonna start shouting at each other, and then you like kind of like sit down and you let your guard down for a bit. Like that can be very freeing, knowing it doesn't always have to go that way.
yeah, I think freeing is the key word there, isn't it? It's like there's always that opportunity to free yourself from anything.
Yeah. Because like um there's people that like I still like replay the things in my head about like what they did to me, and how I can like get them back for it and stuff. But like it's all a game I'm playing in my head. Essentially, it is again just the way that I'm experiencing the world through my mind. But like when it comes to like me seeing the person, I won't do any of the things I was thinking about. So like, what's the point of wasting that mental energy in the first place? Jim Carrey talks about that actually. He's great. He was saying about how you create scenarios in your head with people, and why are you playing these games with yourself? Just sit down in a quiet room and just be at peace. That's the most freeing thing you can do for yourself. It shows like compassion towards yourself and others as well. But yeah, Jim Carrey's great.
Yeah, his I don't know if it's his actual Instagram account, but like Jim Carrey's here or something like that. Like
I don't think he has one.
Yeah, I think it's like someone just taking his quotes and stuff. But like, it's a really profound account to follow. Like, there's so many like gems of wisdom that he shares, and like if you watch like a lot of his, you see the clips doing the rounds on TikTok and stuff like that, like and on the odd Instagram like page. But like, take time to actually listen to what he's saying. Like, he speaks a lot of wise truth.
That's right. And it's not just Jesus who can give you the answers. It's not just prophets that are like that existed ages ago. There are like modern day prophets existing within many of the younger generation. I don't want to include myself, that's so like but like people who are just even like Kanye West, like, man, he's a mate. Like people just don't see the side of him that would make you like almost not praise him, but like he's proven to everyone that it's doable. And like how just speak your truth, and you will create like what it is you're meant to be here for. And if people can just like see past all the drama, and I strongly believe, again, that's like a game of his where he's trying to get like more album sales.
Yeah.
But if people just see past that and can see like how far he's come with his art and with his mission, he's a really good guy, in deep down in his heart, as we all are. But yeah, he's my favorite example because he's so loud and everyone knows who he is.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Well, dude, this has been an amazing and fascinating conversation, man, and I want to thank you for the time. Before we sign out, is there any final thoughts or any final words that you want to share with anyone who's listening?
I do want to say this is something that's on my mind. I remember when I was like back at like 25K, and you were like commenting under my TikToks, and you made a video of me, and you were like, these are my top 5 like favorite TikTokers. And bro, that was like the first moment I felt like I felt absolutely amazing, and I remember it to this day. Like, the feeling was so good. I saved it to my camera roll, everything. I was just like watching it over and over again, and it just meant a lot. And like how far we've come since then, to us talking now, is just so cool, and it's a really like humbling experience to be talking with you. So that's literally it.
Oh, amazing, man. That's sick.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate that, because that was out of just pure love, man. It's like,
yeah,
you know, there was a few account. I can't remember who the other ones were. I think it was like Dr. Julie Smith and a couple. I put Bijan on there as well. Like just a
Mm.
few of the accounts that were really
I know
resonating.
Bijan. I remember
Yeah.
Bijan now. I remember him.
Yeah, they're really resonating with me, and I was like, yeah, like, and I wanted to share your account because it was a smaller one as well. Like I did that purposely because like the others were like, you know, hundreds of thousands or whatever, and I was like,
Mm.
this is a guy who's like, he's young but like he knows his stuff, you know, he's talking truth. So yeah, I'm glad that was received in that way, man. That's nice to hear.
That's really good, man. Thank you.
Pleasure. So where can people keep up to date with you and find you online, and anything else that you want to shout out?
Yeah, this Lawrence Choto, Lawrence with a W, on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And whatever link I have in my bio, just come through, join my Discord. That's where I just have people who are like-minded and we hang out and talk there. So yeah, come through, say hello.
Nice. Thank you, dude. Appreciate it, man. It's been a fantastic conversation.
Appreciate it. Thank you.